Welcome to a new episode of Alternative Perspective. In this episode of Alternative Perspective, we discuss Narendra Modi-led BJP government's foreign policy failure with regards to Afghanistan. Kindly watch this episode till the very end in order to get your perspective right. United States of America has started to withdraw its troops from Afghanistan starting May 2021. US troop withdrawal and rapid Taliban advancement has made the situation precarious in Afghanistan. In an attempt to resolve the crisis, Russia has come up with a framework called Extended Troika. Russia has also invited China, Pakistan and United States of America. However, India has not been invited. Under this framework, 2 rounds of talks have already taken place in Qatar on March 18 and April 30, 2021. Next meeting under this framework is scheduled to be held on August 11, 2021. Apart from Russia, China, Pakistan and the United States of America are expected to attend this meeting that comes amid fast evolving political and security situation in Afghanistan. Naturally, question comes, where is the problem? From ancient times, Afghanistan had close ties with India in terms of religion and culture. Afghanistan was part of ancient India, what is known as Akhand Bharat. For a long time, RSS BJP have been feeding us with this pill, that one day they would again build Akhand Bharat. However, we see that India has not been invited in the restructuring and rebuilding process of Afghanistan. To be able to understand why Modi Sarkar's foreign policy is a complete failure with regards to Afghanistan, we need to go back in history. In 1970s, Afghanistan had a vibrant society and colorful people with aspirations. Although a majority Muslim country, Afghan society had liberal values. In 1960, men and women were given equal rights. Women could educate themselves, take up jobs and move freely. In the rural areas, Afghan tribes were happy with their agrarian society and their rural lifestyle. They have been living with pride from ancient times. These are simple, religious, God-fearing people, but fiercely possessive of what little things they had. Let's watch this video clip which sums up Afghanistan in between 1960 and 1970. But all this was about to change and take an ugly turn when this man called Zbigniew Brzezinski visited Khyber Pass close to Afghanistan-Pakistan border in 1979. Zbigniew Brzezinski, a Jewish refugee of Polish origin, was the 10th National Security Advisor of the United States of America. In 1979, Zbigniew Brzezinski was seen brainwashing rather simple Afghan tribal men.
US National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role. On the Afghan border near the Khyber Pass, he urged the soldiers of God to redouble their efforts.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
The purpose of coordinating with the Pakistanis would be to make the Soviets bleed for as much and as long.
Well, this video clip that you have just now watched perhaps provides enough clue. Yes, America's 10th National Security Advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was seen brainwashing rather simple Afghan tribal men along Afghanistan-Pakistan border near Khyber Pass. And all this in 1979, the year Soviet invasion of Afghanistan started. It was the American national security apparatus represented by America's 10th National Security Advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who brainwashed the simple Afghan tribal men and pushed these people into a never-ending war which continues till this very day. It is the American administration which funded, trained and raised Taliban and later Al-Qaeda. And all this was justified under the pretext that these were Mujahideens who were fighting the Soviet-Russian invaders. This is again a big lie. The groundwork started almost 8 years back in 1971. By 1971, Anglo-American power axis had received body blows. In Vietnam War, more than 2 million Vietnamese lost their lives and countless number of people were displaced and maimed. But Anglo-American forces lost close to 58,000 men. American economy got crippled in this process. In United States of America, public opinion grew against this irrational war in Vietnam. Many Americans till this day believe that the Jewish German refugee turned America's 8th National Security Advisor under Nixon administration, Henry Kissinger, and his clique was primarily responsible for this carnage. In 1971, India's victory over Pakistan and freedom of Bangladesh was a disaster for the Anglo-American axis and was looked upon as the victory of Indo-Russo power axis. American economy was on the verge of bankruptcy. President Richard Nixon had to take American dollar completely out of the gold standard. This is the beginning of fiat currency or petrodollar. In order to avenge these body blows, American administration came up with a sinister plan. This master plan would be formulated by America's national security apparatus under the leadership of Henry Kissinger, a Jewish German refugee turned America's 8th National Security Advisor. Kissinger and his disciple Zbigniew Brzezinski, America's 10th National Security Advisor, are chiefly responsible for this quagmire in which Afghanistan finds itself today. Kissinger and later Brzezinski laid the foundation of American foreign policy. Their policies are chiefly responsible for the death and destruction which Afghanistan has been witnessing for the last 40 years. Naturally, question comes, what was the sinister plan? Anglo-American Western Empire zeroed in on Afghanistan for its geostrategic significance. They understood that if they could control Afghanistan, they would be able to disturb peace in India through Pakistan-sponsored terrorism, keep Iran at its toes, and more importantly, they would be able to get a foothold in Eurasia and Central Asia. In Asia-Eurasian region, their main aim was to destabilize India, through terrorism in one hand and destabilize Muslim-dominated states of former Soviet Russia such as Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan on the other hand. So, the Anglo-American Empire mobilized their intelligence assets. In 1973, the king of Afghanistan, Muhammad Zahid Shah, was removed in a coup. They soon started radicalizing the Afghan society, particularly in the tribal belt along Afghanistan-Pakistan border near Khyber Pass. And in 1977, American intelligence helped an American stooge called Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq to become Pakistan's president. Zia used Pakistan's crushing defeat in 1971 war against India and the sentiment of the Pakistani people to prepare a ground for the radicalization of Pakistani society. Zia wasted no time in providing the Americans the much needed foothold in the Pakistan, and Pakistan became a de facto US base for waging a proxy war against Soviets in one hand and India on the other hand. Zia would appoint a Pakistani army general called Hamid Gul and would mobilize Pakistan's military and ISI, that is inter-services intelligence, to support the US Taliban axis. Radicalization of Afghan society would continue throughout the latter part of 1970s, which picked up pace after General Zia became Pakistan's president. It is this which forced the Soviet Russia to start a military campaign against Afghanistan, which proved to be suicidal. USA spreads a big lie that their support to the Mujahideens and Taliban was in response to Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. But in reality, it is the other way around. Soviet invasion was aimed to throttle United States of America and Pakistani activities in Afghanistan and to prevent their backyard from turning into a heaven for the terrorist activities. Naturally, question comes, what was the impact of this proxy war? Soviet Russia got economically crippled and as a result, it got disintegrated. Pakistan channelized American and Western funds, arms, ammunition and equipments, training and intelligence against India in anti-Indian terrorism and proxy war against India. From the onset, USSR and India was the main target of Western powers such as USA and Britain. They just used Afghanistan and to a great extent Pakistan for this purpose. Afghanistan got completely destroyed in this process. Through the never-ending saga of terror strikes in India, socio-political subversion of India was achieved, which culminated in the socio-religious polarization in India as a cross-section of Hindu community started to associate terrorism with Islam. Since USA and Britain armed Pakistan with nuclear weapons, it prevented Congress governments to fight a full-scale war with Pakistan. Congress governments adopted a covert approach rather than overt means, and since covert operations are supposed to be kept secret, people in India, particularly a section of Hindus, thought that the successive Congress governments were soft on terror. Covert operations or special operations are supposed to be kept secret. If someone starts to trumpet about these things, people should understand that these are probably aimed to create a narrative among the domestic audience, such as Balakot. However, since covert operations are mostly invisible from the public spectrum, majority population acted with emotion rather than rational. This actually induced a psychological aberration among the masses as the masses started to think that the successive Congress governments were soft on terror. It is this cognitive dissonance coupled with RSS-backed socio-political and religious subversion throughout 90s which culminated in the emergence of BJP as a political power. Therefore, an enlightened viewer might raise an important question: did United States of America Pakistan activities and Pakistan-sponsored terrorism help RSS-BJP combination to emerge as a political power through socio-political and religious subversion? Well, viewers can draw their own conclusion. However, it seems as if, or it appears as if, that the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism helped BJP-RSS combination to climb up the political power axis in India. Once Vajpayee and BJP-led NDA government came to power in 1998, they wasted no time in appointing Brajesh Mishra as India's first national security advisor, which is an American concept that was drafted into the Indian governmental framework. and they started to alter India's policy framework, particularly India's foreign policy framework. Although National Security Advisor Brajesh Mishra and his office could not prevent Kargil War of 1999, IC-814 hijack 1999, Chitti Singhpura massacre year 2000, Parliament attack year 2001, Kaluchak massacre year 2002, it could not diminish the significance of NSS office, rather NSS office grew in power. In fact, IC-814 hijack culminated in the release of Maulana Masood Azhar along with his two other accomplices who were in captivity in Indian jail. Present NSA, that is National Security Advisor James Bond, Mr. Ajit Doval, actually negotiated the release of Masood Azhar, and then NSA or then National Security Advisor Brajesh Mishra actually persuaded Vajpayee and BJP-led NDA government to release these people from Indian jails. Masood Azhar went on to form Jaish-e-Mohammed, a Pakistan-based terror outfit that was responsible for Parliament attack in 2001, Kaluchak massacre 2002, 26/11 Mumbai attack in 2008, of course alongside Lashkar-e-Taiba, and finally Pulwama attack in 2019, which of course changed the course of 2019 general election in India. Enlightened viewers might want to know whether the destruction of World Trade Center was an orchestrated event enacted through controlled demolition, funding and raising of terror outfits such as Al-Qaeda and Islamic State by the American administration before and after these events raises suspicion. Destruction of World Trade Center can be viewed as the thesis stage of classic Hegelian dialectic which gave them the pretext to start a war on terror. Destruction of World Trade Center, orchestration of terror attacks or events all over the world, including 26/11 Mumbai attack, and finally the war on terror were aimed to serve several purposes. Polarize the world into two blocks, that is the sympathizers of Islam and supporters of political Zionism, so that a global conflict can be orchestrated as envisioned by the ruling elites. This would have given them the perfect opportunity to set in motion their diabolical plan. Destroy the oil-rich Muslim nations of the second and third world, kill their people, plunder their resources, and destroy the societies and transform the societies into the spawning ground for future terrorism. Prolong the life of petrodollar through the plunder of resources and by boosting the war economy. And finally, to bring in a totalitarian surveillance state as envisioned by the ruling elites. After the destruction of World Trade Center, Vajpayee and BJP-led NDA government wasted no time in accepting America's bogus war on terror narrative, completely disregarding the fact that the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism in reality was US-sponsored terrorism. USA just used Pakistan's shoulder to aim at India. Terror attacks all throughout 90s and major terror events during Vajpayee and BJP-led NDA government in between 1998 and 2004, and major terror attacks beyond 2004 such as 26/11 Mumbai attack is the sole reason behind the socio-political and socio-religious subversion in India, which culminated in the socio-religious polarization in India. And this socio-religious subversion is the main reason behind BJP's rise as a political power in India. Many think that 26/11 Mumbai attack was enacted through the involvement of four entities: Western intelligence assets, Pakistani military intelligence complex, Pakistan-based terror outfits such as Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Indian deep state. Soon after this, 26/11 was dubbed as India's 9/11. Vajpayee-led BJP government during 1998 and 2004 and Narendra Modi-led BJP government since 2014 used this bogus American war on terror narrative to implement a pro-American, pro-Israel policy, particularly the foreign policy. That is, India's foreign policy was altered. After doing plenty of Kemcho Trump and Howdy Modi since 2014, and after sidelining and undermining trusted allies like Russia and Iran, Modi Sarkar is not supposed to cry foul. Even a visit by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to Russia just prior to the announcement of this meeting of extended Troika did not yield any result. However, during Nehruji's time, India had good terms with Afghanistan, and the Troika of Soviet Russia, Afghanistan and India kept Anglo-American power axis at bay for more than 2 decades. In 1997, Zbigniew Brzezinski published his book, The Grand Chessboard, American Primacy and its Geostrategic Imperatives. In this book, Brzezinski celebrates what he has done to the Eurasian region. So I read, America is now the only global superpower, and Eurasia is the globe's central arena. Hence, what happens to the distribution of power on the Eurasian continent will be of decisive importance to America's global primacy and to America's historical legacy. The most immediate task is to make certain that no state or combination of states gains the capacity to expel the United States from Eurasia or even to diminish significantly its decisive arbitration role. So this is what he has written in his book, The Grand Chessboard. Therefore, in spite of crime against humanity, United States of America had to be involved in the discussion. Although Pakistan is complicit in this crime against humanity, it is also true that more than 5 million displaced Afghans resided along Afghanistan-Pakistan border, particularly in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region. And Pathans are there on the both sides of the border. And let me tell you that this Afghanistan-Pakistan border is a bit fluid in nature. Soviet Russia did a lot of work up to 1960s, and Tajik, Turkmen and Uzbek people who live in northern frontiers of Afghanistan belong to former Soviet Russia. These people were part of what is known as Northern Alliance in Afghanistan. Therefore, Russia's involvement is justified. Although Soviet Russia invaded Afghanistan in 1979 and they could not manage the situation well after their invasion, but I have already explained why they actually invaded and how they were actually entrapped over there. China is an automatic choice in the extended Troika because of their economic might and because of their military might and the kind of influence they exert in the Eurasian region. Therefore, their involvement is also justified. Afghanistan was part of ancient Bharat in terms of religion and culture. Modi Sarkar's policy failure could not make sure that India remained involved in the restructure and rebuilding process of Afghanistan. There is no denying in the fact that Afghanistan was part of ancient Bharat in terms of religion and culture. But Modi Sarkar's foreign policy failure could not make sure that India remained involved in the restructure and rebuilding process of Afghanistan. The point is that Modi Sarkar and the BJP government has actually altered the Indian foreign policy framework to a great extent. And now the Indian foreign policy has been shifted to Israel-USA axis. And it is this shift in the Indian foreign policy which led to this disaster, which led to this failure. And it is this reason why India was not actually invited in this extended Troika. Otherwise, it would have been. Try to understand this very point. Therefore, kindly share this video with your loved ones and subscribe to this channel. And thanks for watching this video.